Welcome to the shop. I'm Tom McLaughlin. That's the marvelous camera lady over there. You might be saying, what in the world is that? Well, this is a little project that my son had an idea for at Christmas time. So here we are, April, and I'm not there yet. But we got pretty far with it. We had this, this plywood core, like a Baltic birch ply, 1/2 inch, which we veneered in mahogany, and we've got that nice wrap veneer look. See that?
Yep.
The way it goes right around. And then we've got some edging. And what this is it's kind of his control box, his tech control. He does producing music, and he has this like little command center, and he's got these tech boxes. See how techie I am. But they're his black audio boxes that plug into his computer, and he does a lot of controlling and sound. The top one needed to slide out because it's got an adjustment knob on it, and it's going to come out and stop right about there. And then it'll come back and it'll have a stop right back here with a little magnet on it to catch. The other two are stationary, and they're kind of situated. Now you can see what I did was I pre-finished. I don't usually do this, but because of the constraints and tightness of this box, we wanted the interior black. So I pre-finished that with that black, that ebonizing method that I showed you in another video. I just ebonized the wood first. We had to tape off all the mahogany edging. And then, of course, you probably know what I use for finish. I sprayed it with clear shellac. It's a little dusty in there, but then we have this stop bar for the component and this hole in the back for the wiring to go down. So it's pretty custom, you know, to those exact pieces. And then you can see around the back, the lower back hasn't been put on yet, but all the wiring is going to go down and into the drawer. And then this corner hole is going to be where the plug goes. Let me show you how this drawer was made. You've probably never seen a drawer like this. But, of course, it's hand-cut dovetails with the Cuban mahogany veneer, mahogany drawer front. And then I just ended it here. So we've got this dovetailing. And I put in a nice quarter sawn pine bottom. Don't need that there. And I ran the grain the other way, you can see, but it does move, and that's going to be fine. And then here I've got blue tape over these leather pads, which there are actually magnets behind there too. So you can see the other side is typical. I blackened out this top edge so it wouldn't be as obvious because the back has this funky shape too, so that the wiring will be more manageable. And here's the corresponding leather on the back. So this is going to sit in here just about like that, and then that drawer will hit, and I could feel the magnet. I'm going to be gluing that in. So the back will look like that, and the front will look like this. But here's the challenge. It's only 9 inches wide and 16 inches tall, and it's 11 inches deep. So it's kind of an awkward little box, and it really needs to be higher off the floor for him to work this. So we were talking about getting it up off the floor, and he didn't even think about it, but I was thinking, okay, I want to make a pretty nice little stand, something that's easy to ship, because if I didn't mention it, he's out in Pasadena. So outside LA, kind of a haul, but so we've got to get it up about about an 8-inch stand to bring the top to 24-ish. So it'll be useful as a little table if he wants, and much more accessible like that. He'll be sitting when using this, and that's going to be a good height for him. Now the crazy thing is, you might be wondering what this is hanging out the side. This thing has to travel. He has to go to other studios. And that was one of the reasons he wanted the box. So it'd be easily movable. So you can just unplug the main wire to there's going to be a power strip in here, and all those components will just be tucked in there. All the wiring runs down kind of through. So everything will be, he'll just push in the main plug, and he wanted to just be able to pick it up with some handles. I'm like, handles? You want handles on the side? Well, maybe something on the top. So now I'm thinking, well, I can't put a handle on the top and then have it always be there. Then you won't really be able to use this surface. It'll be a little weird to have a handle there. So I had to go, I made these split handles.
I had to.
Right. I got these leather strips which are going to come over. They're going to hang down on the side, 2 handles. So in these slots, I glued up this leather thicker, so suede to suede. So it's got like a nice, it's a thicker, more durable leather. And I just glued it together with Type-On 3, believe it or not, in the vacuum press. And it came out beautiful. It's like this nice, thicker, tougher, but it has a nice look to it. And I pre-routed these slots the right width. So that is going to end up being secured inside. And these are going to have to be cut to length, obviously. But what's going to happen is this strap is going to go onto these handles. So these handles, this gets glued in like that. That'll get glued in, and so I have 2 straps, and this handle will come over, and the same will be mirrored true on the other side. And let's just drop the leather for now. But the handles, there are magnets in here, and this thing indexes together, and it just pops together. So you'll be able to just pick it up and go. But then when you're not using it, you just pull the magnets apart, and it will just hang down on the sides like that. So out of the way. Kind of crazy, but I had fun on the handle. And that's Wenge, by the way. And that's that. So now I'm faced with building the base, getting it off the floor. Let me show you some of the sketches that I was dealing with, and then I'll show you a little quick cut of one of the legs, and hopefully it'll inspire some imagination of how we can use this. All right, so let's check this. We're going to look at the drawing. So here's where I made some sketches. This is all to scale. This is an 1/8 inch scale. So every 1/8 inch equals 1 inch. So this was my first thought, was to put it on this 1 inch thick panel. So this is the front view, but from the side view, it was over deep. But I don't know, that kind of took up more room on the floor, and it was going to mean a larger box to ship it. I was hoping to ship the base broken down, and he could just kind of screw it together. So it'd just be a smaller package for the base. So I went away from that, and I started thinking, what if I had legs on it, kind of that sweeping style we did on the other coffee table base. Remember the, what do we call it? The lily pad table. And I've used this style on the writing desk and all that. Anyway, this method had a rail coming across and tenoning into the leg, and then there'd be a front to back rail that would come through that rail. So that would be typical. A rail would be seated under the piece. But then I got thinking, why not use this panel method and just dado the leg so it lips over there. So now you can see this is just a panel, and the leg is free, and it could dado over. And my plan is to just put these little pocket screws right under here. Come in, cut my triangular pocket under here, and the screw will hold that leg on. But that's not important. So that can be broken off that way. Or taken apart, maybe broken. But anyway, this is the front view. So this is all to scale. So I've got about 1 inch extra overhang, and this is about 1.25 inches thick. And here's the box, our 16 high, and this is our 8 inches off the floor. Now this is the front view, and then this is the side view. So it's a little deeper on the side, and this is where our handle would be up here. And I wanted the leg to sweep out this way. So by using this outward swept leg, we're getting a wider stance on the support, so it's a little more stable. the center of gravity here is a little high. Still thinking about how I want it to seat, maybe in a little recess there, but it's going to be, you're going to be able to pull it off anyway. So that was the plan. Now that I had this all to scale, it was time to enlarge it and get it into a full-size drawing so I could make a pattern of this leg. So I'm going to set this aside and let's bring up the drawing. Some of you are familiar with this process now. I'll just hold this here. So you can see now, this is just the actual size of that little sketch. Can you see that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's our base. This is 1.25 inches. And this is just going to be a solid wood plank. You could use plywood, veneered it, and edge it or whatever. That would be fine. But I just tried to keep this simple and wanted a good, flat, solid wood plank, something that would stay flat. So I was thinking it should be quarter sawn, and then it'll be easier just to cut the pocket holes underneath and secure those legs. I mean, this is not taking a lot of stress, this table, so it's going to work out pretty well. But here's that leg shape. So taking the scale proportions of that little 1/8 inch scale leg and blowing it up now to the full height. The top of this is 8 inches high. So this leg overall is just like 9.25. I needed enough material above the dado because this is short grain right here. And you have to give it some strength there. So we'll have a dado that way. But then the leg is also going to be let into the side a little bit. So if you now look at the side view, the leg, you're going to have about 1 inch sticking out in the front too. So this margin of the platform that it sits on will be the same all around, about 1 inch out sides and front and back. But the leg will be set back. Now, once I get the dado cut, the leg will be fit over and I'll do the shaping and everything. And then I'm thinking I'm going to just knife around the location right there and let in to the side of this panel up just about 1/8 of an inch. So it'll be more like a cross lap. So here we'll just have a dado, but once we let it in, I'll make these knife cuts and take away about 1/8 of an inch in that edge, and then the leg will set in to that side as well as get a bite this way. So that'll keep it from moving and it'll give it a lot of strength. And really all it needs to be is held tight into that pocket and you'll get a lot of strength from it. So I'm going to have a nice coarse screw and I'll be pre-drilling that and you'll be able to run it in and it'll be good and strong and it'll be disassemblable. Is that a word?
It is now.
How many syllables is that? So this is the way I do a lot of my drawings. Like if I'm going to make a drawing, now this is a simple one, but I usually just leave them in pencil, but I inked it out for you. But you've seen the full-size drawings that we do for the courses. This is more like a real working drawing. You're just trying to work out the essential things you don't have figured out. Now, I needed the pattern for this, and I've got a little tick mark down here. I don't know if you can see, but I squared up to this inner face just to see how big of a block I needed. It turns out I need like 2 3/16, just under 2 1/4 square to do the side and the front. So I just needed some stock like that. So let's see, I've got a block right here. That's going to be my leg stock. Okay, that'll get out a leg. It's a little over length, but I don't have the dado cut yet. So that's one of my legs. Now, the panel, let me just lay this down. Here's the panel. Check this out. I've never used this stuff. When I cut into it, it reminded me of shop class in 9th grade. Look at the quarter sawn grain there. I looked at it and this is one board. This was a 2x12 it was. Here's the board I cut it off of. I got this from our good friends at Goose Bay It was just in the shorts pile, and they were nice enough to let me have this to play around with. So shout out to Goose Bay. But I had to count the rings, of course, because each one of these lines is a year's growth. And would you believe this 11-inch wide panel, there's 185 years?
Wow.
Can you believe that? And that's not even the whole width of the tree. I don't know where the center is and the outside. So this was a tremendous tree that grew in like a thick forest. So this is our plank for the base. And we've got that 1.25 inch thickness, and I've got it cut so there's a margin around the edge of about 1 inch. Now you can see I've got little numbers at the corners, and that's for the legs where they're gonna bite over onto this plank and create the base. So here's our plank right here. It's gonna sit just like that. Now the shape of the leg, to make that pattern, I just slid some 1/4 inch MDF under there, and I stippled through as usual, and then I cut out that 1/4 inch MDF and cleaned it up with a file, and we've got this. Okay, so that's our pattern. It's fun to do little jobs like this because you can just kind of do them quickly and get a working pattern. So now I've got my stock, my pattern, and I just need to cut the dados. So the dados, we know, we want the top of it to be 8 inches and the bottom to be whatever thickness it is to fit over this piece. Now I've already kind of numbered them. This is the number 4 leg. I did a little on the other legs, so I'll be able to show you in a minute. But let's go over to the table saw, and I'll just show you real quickly how we cut that dado out so that it laps over. All right, so I got my crosscut sled, and I set the stop so that when I butt against the stop, I'm gonna come up, and I'm right at 8 inches to this side of the blade, okay? That's gonna give us the top of our panel, that cut. I didn't put a dado blade in because it's a little bit of a hassle with the saw stop, and I don't have that many cuts to make. So I'm just gonna nibble away at it with the 1/8 inch blade. So here's the location of the cut, because this is my number 4 leg. That's from the back, and this is from the side. So this is where it's gonna notch over the piece. So I just made a little line. So that's gonna be face down like this. So I'm gonna come over and make my cut. I raised the blade a 1/2 inch. My dado is gonna be a 1/2 inch deep. I've got a flat cutting. It's a number 1 grind ridge carbide saw blade in there. So that's gonna leave a flat bottom hole. Now, I'm gonna push it over and put a spacer block in this side, and it needs to be right about 1.125 inches wide. So at 1.125 inches, that means I'll make my first cut here, and then I'll push over 1.125 inches, but then I'm gonna be gaining 1/8 inch from the other side of the blade, so that's gonna give me my 1.25 inches. Now I did some test cuts before, and I added little pieces of tape. I made the block intentionally a little undersized from the thickness so that I could add tape as like a feeler gauge until it got, well, as a really micro shim, so it got just to the right and it would fit over. And I think we're good right here, so let's just go ahead and make this cut, and that's the setup. Turn on the dust collector. All right, that's it. Nice little bite right over there. So there you can see how this is going to be notched over. And that, my friends, is pretty much the joinery. That's it, right? Except for the housing aspect later. But that won't be cut in until this is final shaped to know exactly where it has to be knifed around. And that's just going to be a little 1/8 inch deep. And you could do it with a router if you want, by knifing in and then chiseling, and then it's going to set in that added 1/8. Then a little pocket hole underneath, and that'll pull it in. So let's go back to the bench. This now is ready to go. I've got to cut now the shape of this leg. So if I come over here, I know this is my front. Let me get my chalk so I don't get confused here. This is, when I say front, I mean from the back looking at it, almost like you're looking at from the front. So we know from here, this will be coming in this way, and it'll be sweeping out like that. And then we'll have the foot is going to come up into that area there, okay? So that's our first one. And then once we get that cut, we're going to make the side cut, and that's going to sweep this way. So it'll give an outward sweep in both directions. Be out here, out here. So we'll cut this one first. All we have to do is set our little pattern on there. I'm going to set it right out to the point, flush with the bottom, and then get it flush on this inside face, and just mark right around it with a pen. I got this nice curve at the top and a little outward curve right here, reminiscent of the modern writing desk some of you have made. So there we go. All right, so we'll go ahead and saw this out, and then we'll make our other line. So let's head over to the bandsaw. All right, so back here at the bench, I'm just gonna put this block as a support back underneath. And let's see, this is my number 4 leg. So sweeping this way, I'm gonna just get this support block under here. While I'm doing this, I want to remind you, if you're in the area and you want to come by, there's a little Furniture Masters gallery opening reception tomorrow night, on Friday night from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Chamber of Commerce, where our little, it's not a huge gallery, but there's about 10 Furniture Masters pieces. None of them are really big, but you'll be able to see some pretty sweet work if you're into that, and also meet a number of the makers will be there. A lot of them actually. So now the width of this leg from the drawing is right here. It's just under 1 3/4 inches. So I'm going to make this reference line here because I'm going to bandsaw like straight to start and then sweep out from there. So this is a little different on the side here because this is kind of parallel with the front and the back. So right about at the bottom of the dado. So if I just come up right about here, I can sight it. That's where it's going to start to sweep out. So I can get my pattern back on here, flush at the bottom, flush at the outside corner, and then flush on the inside here. Well, I'm lining up now with that pen line, so I can just set it right there and come right down. Now I'll get my inside line. Let's turn it this way. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead, saw this off. So I'm going to start with the fence for the little straight shot. Help clean it up a little easier after, it'll look a little nicer. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's it. Check it out. So there's one of our little legs. So pretty sweet. That'll be on this back here. This will be the approximate location right there. And it'll be supported that way. Now let's just put a little double stick tape in here and we can set this in and see how it fits. I'm going to make a little pencil mark in here. This is about, let's see, I've got like a 15/16 margin around the edge.
Got a question here. Do you
Sure.
run a workpiece backwards against the teeth of the blade to remove rust spots, or just take it out with sanding and scraping?
I take it out with usually spoke shaving and card scraping, sanding. These will be further refined, as some of you know. You're probably wondering, yes, I am going to give them a little pillowing. Also, I'll be actually ebonizing this panel. It would be a little too bright, obviously. And then the mahogany will be dichromated, so it'll get deeper this color. So we'll have this black platform with mahogany legs. So everything will be matching nicely. And this will kind of be a nice backdrop for the beautiful color of the mahogany. Will be sitting on this black platform, which I love. It just makes the color pop better all around when you have black accents like that, in my humble opinion. So let's see if, I think this tape will hold and we can put this whole thing together. So if this, we take number 4, and I'm going to bring it in. I'm just going to put it temporarily. We'll tape it in place. It's going to be more refined, of course, later. And then I have the other legs I worked on earlier. But what I love about this is how fast the joinery is. Isn't that nice for a change? Oh, that's number 3. Okay, here's one I spoke shaved a little bit. This is the front leg, but that's how just a little spoke shaving cleans up the surface, and then this will be softly pillowed to give it a little of the round signature look there. You can see how the grain follows the curve of the leg. That was intentional by orienting the grain on the end to come out to the corner. So when you saw a curve into a straight piece like this, the grain interior will sweep the same way as the leg. So it's nice to see when that works out. I was going to just ebonize everything on the base. And then I remembered, oh, well, you know, this would be nice to have the contrast. And now that we're using these mahogany legs, we can use mahogany legs, I mean, to make it interesting. Okay.
Nathan's curious if you're going to inset the legs, notch the platform into the platform around.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to explain earlier, Nathan. Once I get the legs shaped, I'll put them in position like this, and then I will actually knife along the edges, and then I will mark, and I'll either run across on the table saw to get out the waist, just about an 1/8 inch deep, so these drop in even further. Then that becomes a full cross lap. So right now we just have a dado, but when you put that cross lap in, then the legs can't go this way. So once that screw pulls in, you have a really solid structure for such a small table, you know. The limits of this construction are obvious. You know, you wouldn't want, I would be a little nervous of having it be a huge coffee table or something that might get sat on. It would probably handle a lot, but you know, it's not quite the same quality of joinery as we're used to in many of our pieces. But there you have it. Check that out. So now we've got this nice little platform sitting up here, and let's put the box up on and see how it's going to look. Of course, all these edges will be softened, and that'll be ebonized, and this will be sitting up in there, something like that. This will be much more sculptural. Man, I got to stand back and look at this first time. Yeah, I think that's going to be sweet. Just like we wanted, right?
Elegant.
So that's the process. You go from scale drawing, full-size drawing, patterns, salt your stock after joinery's cut, and then refinement, final assembly. Well, this case, I'm going to cut those pocket holes under here, so that'll be a nice little feature. I don't usually make them able to come apart, but I think that'll be awesome. It'll really pull in. It'll be able to ship flat. We'll be good to go. Thanks for being with us for another evening of fun and creativity. We really couldn't do this without you. And on behalf of the marvelous camera lady and myself, we look forward to seeing you next time right back here on Sharp Night Live. Yes. Good night, everybody.
Awesome, awesome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Take care.